Hi friends, welcome to the Scapegoat Club. My name's Jess, and in this video I've got 3 new ways that really difficult parents can use to manipulate their children. So stay tuned and I'll walk you through them. Hi friends, welcome. My name's Jess. I'm a psychotherapist, I'm a coach, and I come from a really difficult family. And in this video, I'm going to walk through 3 new behaviors that I've got my head around that I think that really difficult narcissistic and toxic parents can use to manipulate their children. So these behaviors are really kind of like either subsets or they align with narcissistic behaviors such as gaslighting, projecting, or DARVO. And if you haven't come across those, I'll talk you through it. But basically I've got 3 ways and I'm really curious to see if they resonate with you or if you've got any other suggestions that you think haven't really been spoken about yet. So the first of the 3 behaviors I'm going to talk about is what I'm going to call puzzling, as in kind of jigsaw puzzling. So I'm going to talk you through what I think this looks like. And if you can imagine a jigsaw puzzle, it's got all the little tiny pieces, and you take all the pieces and you put them together and you make your own puzzle. So in the same way that a good parent will look at their child or their children and understand all the different nuances and kind of get a good picture of how their child is, things that the child is good at, things that the child isn't so good at, but they're really looking at the big picture and trying to understand the whole thing. But what happens in more difficult families is that parents they're not interested in the bigger picture. They're just interested in little pieces of the puzzle. So if we have a picture of a rainbow, for example, and we've got all the different colors and we've got maybe some sky in there and some clouds and we've got the whole spectrum of colors, what a narcissistic parent will do is they'll pick like a piece from here and a piece from there and say, okay, this child, you my hero child, my favorite child, you're all yellow. These pieces we found show that you're yellow. And then our not favorite child, our scapegoat child, our problem child, we're going to pick out a different color, who knows, a really dark purple or something. We're going to pick out all those dark pieces and say, well, this proves then that you're this dark person that always looks like this. So rather than seeing the big picture and looking for the light and dark in each of us, really difficult, toxic and narcissistic people just take a couple of pieces and they say, well, this proves that you are good or you are bad. And so the problem with that, the problem when we're children, we've had a fight with one of our siblings. What a good parent in that perspective will do is look at, okay, well, these are the circumstances that led up to it. This is, one child was picking on the other one, so they might look at it and say, oh yeah, that's happened again. We know that this child is more sensitive. We know that this child is more used to getting their own way or something like that. And so they can see the dynamics and understand that it's not one-sided and that there are reasons why, say, one child retaliated, one child got angry and the other one didn't. There's this kind of balance. But what happens in really toxic families is that one child will always be kind of blamed for the bad things, the scapegoat, and then another child will always kind of come out on top, and parents will side, basically take sides against or for one child rather than seeing the whole big picture. So I'm going to call that kind of like the puzzling, like a do-it-yourself puzzler, where you take just a couple of pieces of the puzzle and you make up your own picture. But the problem with that is when we've got young children is that children know the truth. And so if the parent is picking up on like the darker or the less positive sides of the child's character way more than they're ever kind of seeing the good sides, and the child can really end up in feeling a lot of shame and a lot of bad feelings about themselves because they're only being viewed for certain tiny pieces of their character. And so when they're trying to defend themselves and say it's again this fight with a sibling, then the parent will say, well, did you or did you not hit your brother? And if the child did hit their brother or kind of lashed out because they felt very provoked or they were really upset about something or things like that, then yes, there is truth behind what the parent is saying, and the child can't deny that that's something that they didn't do, but also it's not the true big picture. And so that's when I think it becomes really manipulative for a parent to do that. Even if the parent isn't realizing they're doing it, it becomes very difficult for the child to kind of work around that, because there are these really strong elements of truth behind what's being said, but it's not the big picture. So it can be very disorienting, really confusing, and really frustrating and harmful for a child. So that's my first one, the puzzler. So the second behavior is something that I definitely feel like I have experienced a lot again, is what I'm going to call the time traveler parent. So this is when a parent can suddenly become confused about the order of events in terms of why things happened. So for me, it's a kind of a bit of a gaslighting technique where people will twist the order of events to justify something that they've done. And I'm going to give you a really clear example of this, which will hopefully help. So in one of my previous videos, doesn't matter if you haven't watched it, but I had a very difficult situation with my family. And at one point I needed to get legal help. I needed to get a legal representative. And my family, my parents were very, very much against me getting the help that I needed. And at one point there was this little narrative around how bad I was because I had got legal help. And I pointed out that actually, in the backstory of this, was I got legal help because my sister had hired a lawyer who I thought was representing the both of us, but was only representing my sister. And so I needed to get my own legal help to try and sort out the mess. And so I pointed out to my dad at this point. He was like, you shouldn't get a lawyer. Lawyers don't understand our family. And I said, well, actually, my sister's had a lawyer for years. But I think what happened in that is my dad really didn't like that argument. So later on, he wrote to me saying, well, my sister had a lawyer because I had got mine. And I'm like, actually, Dad, you've got it completely the wrong way around. I need to get mine because my sister had one. And I don't want to get bogged down in that, but the whole point is that they literally flipped the script in terms of what happened when to suit their narrative. It's a kind of a Darvo, and I mentioned Darvo earlier. If you haven't come across Darvo, it's something that people who talk about narcissism use to describe narcissistic behaviors. It stands for denial, attack, and reverse victim and offender. And it's ways that a narcissist will try and avoid taking any responsibility for what they've done. They'll deny that it happened. They will do a counter-offensive, attack the other person, say that actually the other person is doing the wrong thing, and then they'll say that they're the victim and they've done nothing wrong, and the person who brought up the conversation is the problem. So for me, this time traveling type of thing that parents can do, or any kind of narcissist can do, let's face it, is a type of reversing the victim and offender, because they say, well, actually the reason that they did something is because we'd done something prior to that. And it's actually, you know what, I did this thing because of all the things that led up to it. But somehow they managed to kind of switch, I don't know, turn time, switch things around and make the order of events happen backwards. And again, it can be very confusing. It's a type of gaslighting where it fudges and fogs up our recollection of events. And again, there's an element of truth around what we did and our role in something. And so again, if it's a parent-child, it becomes very difficult for the child to deny that they've done something wrong, because there is an element of truth. Yes, they did do the thing, but they did it because of all the other things leading up to it. But if the parent says, well, all these other things leading up to it didn't happen, then you're kind of hooped. It leaves the child in this situation in a really difficult position, because what do? If they argue back, then they're going to get in more trouble potentially with the parent. Or if the gaslighting is really strong, you might not quite remember how it happened, or you might start doubting, well, did this happen first? Was this me? Was this them? It becomes really confusing. So again, be aware of this kind of time twisting, time traveler type of person if you have a difficult parent or a difficult narcissistic type person in your life. And the third behavior I wanted to touch on is something I'm going to call parroting. And for me, this is the opposite of projecting. So projecting is when a narcissist will basically accuse someone else of doing what they're thinking about doing or something that they've done. It's almost like a guilty conscience speaking out loud. So a narcissist might say something like, oh, well, you're just really jealous. And it's like, you hadn't even thought about being jealous, but then you realize it's because that's been on their mind. I think it actually happens inadvertently quite a lot, but when a narcissist will speak out and kind of like expose something that they're thinking and put it onto you. So for me, parroting is the opposite. When the narcissist has heard something from outside of themselves and they're then trying to kind of take that and wear it. So let me explain what I mean by that. So I'll give you an example. So when I've tried to have conversations with my parents, and rather than saying, I think this is really offside and I think this is really wrong, I had to modify my language because my parents didn't like me saying anything that felt too confrontational. So I remember saying to my parents, I just wish that our communication could be more respectful. And what I meant from that is that I need you to tell the truth and to really not be making up stuff about me. So I used the word, I'd like it to be more respectful. And then the next time they came back, or the time after that, my parents had come back with something like, we have been nothing but respectful towards you. And it's like, no, you haven't. You haven't. You've just taken a word that I've used and then you've decided you want to kind of take that on and wear it and put it out into the world as to that's who you are. So for me, it's kind of like parroting, where it's like you hear it, you hear the phrase or you hear the words, and the narcissist then decides that yes, that suits them, that suits the persona, that's a layer and that's something they want to add in. So they'll turn that on and they'll parrot it back. But the weird thing is that it almost seems like parroting because there is no substance behind it. It just doesn't feel genuine and authentic. And so coming back to that example I said, when I said to my parents, look, you need to be more respectful. They wrote back and said, we've been so respectful. We haven't been anything else but respectful. And then they started telling me literally in the same paragraph as to what an awful person they thought I was for things that I hadn't actually done. And so it was so hypocritical. And it's just not genuine. It's like, you can't say you're being respectful and then be disrespectful in the next breath. Or you can't say I'm being so loving and so kind and so thoughtful and then say something mean or nasty or cutting or untrue. So that's where the parroting comes in. So anyway, guys, those are my 3 ideas. Let me know what you think. Do you have any other words for them? Do you have any other behaviors? As always, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate your support. I appreciate your comments. Thank you for being part of the club, and I will see you next Saturday for another Scapegoat Saturday extravaganza. Take care. Bye for now.